In intent, expose Batman. While this seems like something any version of Superman would do if they turned bad, it's actually interesting to see that only the Injustice version of Superman actually did it. Yes, after getting fed up of Batman leading the resistance against his totalitarian regime, because, you know, that's a bad thing, Bruce, Superman tells the whole world that Batman is really Bruce Wayne. How does he do this, you may ask? Like a press conference, or like a world message, or like a video? No. None of the above. The dude just frickin' tweets. Superman, in just 4 simple words, tells the world that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Using those 4 words, actually, in that order. From the official Superman Twitter account, by the way. Dude doesn't even use his Clark Kent Twitter. Like, he's still hiding behind his identity, but he decides to out Bruce's. That's hypocrisy right there. But I guess that's all politicians. With over 2.5 million retweets and over 3.5 million favorites, this is certainly #1 on trending for sure. At least until Kim K posts a pic in like a sexy Batman costume, so that the whole Bruce is actually Batman thing moves to #2, and then the whole internet breaks again. And at 9, joining Reverse Flash. In Tales from the Dark Multiverse 1, Flashpoint, we see a world where Barry Allen died while attempting to get his speed back with Thomas Wayne in the Flashpoint timeline. This leads to Reverse Flash claiming to be the Flash and trying to end the war with the Atlanteans and Amazons by threatening them. Obviously, this doesn't work out because they're the goddamn Atlanteans and Amazons. So, in an effort to save himself, Reverse Flash races through time, changing events to create the world exactly how he wants it, which involves saving not only Bruce Wayne, but Martha and Thomas Wayne as well, resulting in a world without a Batman. Because, you know, Batman's gonna fight against Reverse Flash no matter what. So just getting rid of Batman, this is the smartest thing any villain has ever done, straight up. But on the final page of this issue, we see Eobard with all the new heroes he ended up creating and convincing them to join him, as we can see by the Reverse Flash symbols on their suits. Even Green Lanterns and Wonder Woman has one. This page also has a Superman and honestly, 6 suit, but being controlled, or I guess led by the Reverse Flash, makes this utterly horrifying to think about, especially when you can see the other members of the Flash family racing behind Reverse Flash. Like, he finally got what he wanted. Eobard became the Flash, and now he has his own Justice League that serves his own purposes. This should have been higher. And at 8, put Atlantis in the desert. Superman has his dark moments in Injustice. This especially includes Injustice Gods Among Us #12, written by Tom Taylor with art from Mike Miller and Tom Denerick. Injustice Gods Among Us 12 shows readers Aquaman unleashing Atlantean armies on coastal cities around the globe as a way to show Superman that, you know, it's not gonna happen. Atlantis will not be taken. Superman, of course, takes this as a threat, because of course he does, and you know, Batman knew this would happen. But Aquaman, being Aquaman, refuses to back down, and Superman decides to teach him a lesson. But rather than actually like attacking and probably killing Aquaman, Superman enlists the help of Wonder Woman and the Green Lantern to literally lift Atlantis from the ocean and set it down in the middle of the Sahara Desert, as far from water as he could possibly get on Earth. Honestly, he might as well just put them in space. All of that would just be like direct murder and everyone would have gotten mad at that. But like, honestly, I don't think Superman is above that. This guy is a frickin' monster.
Number 7, Squadron Sinister. This isn't so much an evil alternate Justice League as this team actually appears in the Marvel universe. But I'm gonna count it because I'm just stubborn like that. The original Squadron Sinister was created as a sort of obvious play on DC Comics' Justice League characters Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, and the Flash, with the characters Hyperion, Nighthawk, Dr. Spectrum, and the hilariously named Wizard, respectively. The team was created by the Grand Master after he encountered the Squadron Supreme, and they first appeared in Avengers number 69 when they were pitted against the Avengers in a game between the Grand Master and Kang the Conqueror. They're bad guys who are counterparts to 4 members of the Justice League. I gotta stop justifying my reasons. They're on the list. Argue with me down below if you don't like it.
And at 6, Batman's backup plan. At this point, it's pretty well known that Bruce Wayne kept files and tools to destroy each of the members of the Justice League if it was necessary. Though Clark, like I said, wants Batman to have this ability since he fears himself if he ends up getting manipulated or whatnot, like literally every time Brainiac shows up. But the other Justice League members have not given Batman their information or like been like, yeah man, you can do that. In JLA, The Tower of Babel by Mark Waid and Howard Porter, Batman is shown to keep secret records of how to completely destroy each and every member of the Justice League. These records are then taken by Ra's al Ghul and used to decimate the League, proving an ultimate betrayal on the part of Bruce Wayne. Okay, I get it, like I understand the desire to be prepared since, you know, people in this universe seem to be turned by villains like Brainiac on a regular basis, but that's what Task Force X is for. That's why we have a whole game called Kill the Justice League. You don't need to have like a super secret, this is how you kill all of us hard drive that just begs for every single villain to try and steal it. Like, it's kind of stupid how you thought that was a good idea. All you need to do is have it in your brain. You're the world's greatest detective and you couldn't detect that that was a bad idea.
Number 5. Wonder Woman hunts the Huntress. The Injustice universe shows us a different side to our team members, sometimes a little darker than we're ready for. So in issue 21 of Injustice Gods Among Us Year 3, we find our main supers in a world that's not so bright. And when it comes to issue 21 of Injustice Year 3, DC shows us yet again how great Wonder Woman is at cracking that lasso of truth. It's just a matter of where she cracked it, that was the problem. Well, she wraps it around the neck of the Huntress, and the crack that we hear is exactly what you think. Bam. So Batgirl calls her out for being a murderer, even though she really didn't mean to do it. Accidents happen, especially in the middle of a battle, you know, it happens. I mean, the tension was high. The Huntress was punching through shields. Wonder Woman just reacted in a violent way. It happens, you're a superhero. I remember one time I wrist shot an orange hockey ball through a garage door thing. It's like, you know what? When you're in the middle of it, accidents happen, you get crazy.
In it for Aquaman and Wonder Woman War. Ha, it rhymes. Ah, look at that, I managed to squeeze 2 Flashpoint numbers onto this list, hell yeah. I mean, they're different Flashpoints, but still. In the animated, the Flashpoint Paradox movie in the DC animated universe, the world is much different to its CW counterpart, and like, kind of the general DC universe, mostly due to the war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, who end up being the villains of the movie, thanks to them being former lovers while Aquaman was married to Mira, and then Wonder Woman then killed Mira when she tried to get revenge for her sleeping with her husband. But to be fair, she also wears Mira's crown after she kills her, so it's not really like it was like, oh yeah, it was self-defense. However, this war actually resulted in the destruction of the planet at the exact moment that Barry was able to get enough speed back to get back into the Speed Force and set everything straight. It's a really suspenseful moment where Reverse Flash had just been killed by Batman, so Barry would have enough speed to run back and stop himself from saving his mother. He managed to get into the Speed Force just before the world's destruction caught up with him. It's absolutely insane. It's very Justice League Zack Snyder cut-esque. However, I'm pretty sure they got it from this movie either way. He managed to get back into the Speed Force before the world's destruction, and then the world was destroyed. But, so yeah, it's a bad thing, okay? Even if the Justice League isn't really a thing in this universe, it was still their fault.
Number 3, Darkseid. Darkseid has to be one of the most powerful characters in the entire DC universe, hands down. Especially because although he might not appear to be on the same threat level as some of the others on our list, he's a villain that pretty much has to exist. In other words, you can never fully defeat Darkseid. Darkseid is, meaning that he will keep coming back even after he's defeated. This is because Darkseid is basically like a universal constant in the DC universe. Aside from that, Darkseid is a master strategist and is also known for being an immensely powerful warrior himself and being. He is insanely strong, nigh invulnerable, and comes equipped with Omega Beams, which are said to never miss their target. The beams can either disintegrate Darkseid's opponent completely, or can be used as a life trap when Darkseid chooses instead to employ the Omega Sanction. The Omega Sanction actually traps targets in a series of synthetic lives, which was what happened to Batman instead when he was believed to have been killed by Darkseid. While some individuals can straight up resist the Omega effect, the Omega Beams are also said to be powerful enough to destroy entire planets, which seems like a contradiction, but hey, maybe the people that can avoid the Omega effect are also themselves powerful enough to destroy planets. Would that make sense? I don't know.
Penultimately, in at number 2, ruled the world. Usually when people talk about Superman ruling the world, they're talking about injustice. And while that is a great story and an example of what can go wrong with superheroes, the story of the King of the World is actually a good cautionary tale about Superman other than injustice. In the late 90s, this story features a series of prophecy-like dreams that make Superman realize that his regular MO of just flying around and waiting for disasters to happen isn't really working. And Kal-El decides to be a little more, proactive. In this case, that means building a series of spy satellites to survey Earth, helping Superman keep track of everything that's happening all at once, and then giving up his life as Clark Kent to work as Superman full time. Sleep deprived and losing his grip on humanity, Superman starts interfering more and more in Earth's affairs, toppling extremist governments and even changing the weather. When he realizes that he still can't be everywhere at once though, the Man of Steel deploys an army of Superman robots to help maintain law and order. Again, making him a benevolent dictator. Only snapping out of it when he gets a kiss from Lois Lane. None of the Justice League really tries to stop him either. They just kind of accept it, which is surprising, especially for Batman. Although I find it funny how the Man of Steel deployed Men of Steel. And finally, in at number 1, getting Alfred killed. Look, after Bruce Wayne loses his parents, Thomas and Martha, he's a young boy, okay? The only person who can truly take care of Bruce is Alfred Pennyworth, the Wayne family butler. However, Alfred ends up becoming like a second father to Bruce, raising him to adulthood and caring for him throughout his entire life. He also cares for Bruce's children, as a grandfather, and sometimes even more of a father than Bruce to them. Alfred is incredibly important to Bruce, and probably the only family that the man truly has left. But in Injustice Year 5, number 23, Alfred is spending his birthday alone at Wayne Manor. Unbeknownst to him, Superman has sent the supervillain Victor Zsasz to interrogate him, an altercation which will ultimately result in Alfred's death. I know it was the Injustice Earth, okay, and Supes is a horrible person there, but honestly, think about it. This is the worst thing that Superman, and by proxy his Injustice League, has ever done. Because Alfred is the purest character in all of DC Comics. And in the moment that Alfred died, so did a piece of the DC universe. It doesn't matter if it was in one of infinite Earths and it was one of infinite Alfreds, none of them deserved this.
Alright, at number 10 we have the very silly but nonetheless evil Super Enemies. In the 1970s animated TV show Super Friends, there's an episode in 1979 called Universe of Evil, where Superman travels to an alternate universe to meet the evil counterparts to the Super Friends, very creatively named the Super Enemies. And the team is made up of all those bad guys we've all known so well and grown up with. You know, like Aquaman with an eye patch, and tinted red Batman, and oh, who could forget the iconic alien monkey Gleek. What a trailblazing team of supervillains they were. But as much as I roast them, they do actually pose a decent threat to Superman in this storyline, to the point where they team up with the military armed with kryptonite weapons, and even bring in their own version of Superman, giving our Superman a good old run for his money. But luckily, Superman Prime finds something called an antimatter flask, which turns all the super enemies back to being good again. Thank God Aquaman retires that eye patch and is no longer so intensely menacing looking. What a relief.
Number 9. Justice League of Assassins. Unfortunately, this evil Justice League didn't stick around too long. Being first introduced in Superman Volume 4, number 15 in March 2017, the Justice League of Assassins on Earth 14 were a group of augmented, mostly non-superpowered soldiers led by the obviously powerful Superman. The team was made up of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Batman, Harley Quinn, and Green Lantern. With the exception of Superman, their powers relied mainly on weapons and technology, but primarily they used advanced firearms. Ultimately, they were all slaughtered, with this Superman being kidnapped by Prophecy, which is a shame, because this team looked super cool and they seemed to inhabit a pretty dark and grim looking post-apocalypse. Could have been very interesting.
At number 8 we have the Conglomerate. This group is basically a bizarro version of the Justice League created by Booster Gold. The group is formed after Booster's departure from the Justice League International due to a lack of respect from his peers. When Booster first fails to bring together a competent group of heroes to form the first iteration of the Conglomerate, someone named Claire Montgomery comes in to manage the group. With her, she brings along the likes of Deadeye, an alternate Green Arrow, Fiero, a guy with Fire powers: Frostbite, an ice power guy; Elastoman, a stretchy man; Element Man, much like Metamorpho; Scarab, a knockoff of Blue Beetle; and Slipstream, a dollar store Flash. When they engage in a small friendly skirmish with the Justice League International, the fight quickly turns serious, and everyone learns at once that these new members have actually been brought from an antimatter world called Quard, and they're basically just entirely evil. And always had been. Luckily, the JLI take them down, but it's a close one.
And it's 7 killing Green Arrow. Being as powerful as he is, it's important that Superman keeps a tight grip on his sanity and his powers because, you know. A huge part of the reason that Clark trusts Bruce with shards of kryptonite is because he knows that he can end up being used as a weapon or just going crazy if Lois dies. In this case, he wants Batman to stop him using that kryptonite. However, when Superman goes too far, sometimes nobody's actually there to stop him. In Injustice Gods Among Us number 11, the issue before Superman dropped Atlantis in the Sahara Desert, when the Green Arrow is trying to distract Superman, he fires an arrow at him that bounces off Superman because, you know, it's not a kryptonite arrow, but then it hits his father, Jonathan Kent, in the shoulder. It doesn't kill him. He's fine, he just got shot in the shoulder, but Superman gets so enraged at this that he flies at Green Arrow and immediately starts beating him to death in a furious rage. I mean, like, killing him would be one thing because he's Oliver Queen and he's like one of the sexiest men alive, but brutally beating him is something else entirely, especially with his mother yelling at him, begging for him to stop. Like, dude, listen to your mom, she knows best. Eat your vegetables.
Alright, at number 6 we have the Justice Lords. Appearing in the animated series Justice League in the episode titled A Better World, this evil team is led by a radicalized Superman. Radicalized because he witnesses Lex Luthor murder the Flash and threaten nuclear war. So, Superman decides he'd abandon the typical hero's code of conduct and kill the bald tyrant himself. And in this alternate universe, Lex Luthor isn't just some super rich supervillain working away in hiding, he's actually worked his way to becoming the President of the United States. So, after his death, there is a power vacuum to be filled. And who would be better rulers than this evil alternate Justice League? No one. They didn't think so anyway, so they take over and put in place a totalitarian government with the justification being that they are protecting humanity from itself. And they start calling themselves the Justice Lords, which, I mean, you should sort of know you're the bad guys when the word Lord is in your title. Luckily, the real Superman is able to catch on and take them out of power before anything goes too far.
Number 5. Legion of Doom. The Legion of Doom is pretty impressive considering that they're a group often made up of some of the Justice League's most powerful and recognizable foes, both their foes as individual superheroes as well as foes who have at one time or another threatened the entire Justice League. You know, like Lex Luthor. The Legion of Doom is often seen as competition to the League, being the evil version of the team who often seek to do things their own way, a much more sinister way, usually, but sometimes also seek to rival the League's achievements, operating in the name of the greater good. However, even when they're doing that, they're still kind of, you know, against the League because they're like, we're better than you. So, yeah.
At number 4, we have the Injustice Syndicate. I know, lots of groups with Syndicate and Injustice in their names. Well, that's because this evil version of the Justice League actually exists as a sort of combination between the Injustice League and the Crime Syndicate, both of which are included in this list respectively. Appearing in Batman the Brave and the Bold, in the episode called Deep Cover for Batman, Batman manages to travel to their evil dimension and infiltrate their operations disguised as Owlman. He sees that this group comprises of an evil version of himself, along with other evil alternate versions of other heroes he knows and works with. While eavesdropping, Batman learns of their plans to, you know, destroy other universes entirely, which of course he feels is something he needs to put a stop to. And it can't wait, naturally. So he decides to take all of them on himself, and because he's Batman, and it is his TV show after all, he wins. Those universes can thank him later.
Number 3. Superman moves Atlantis. Injustice Gods Among Us issue 12 is the final issue of the first Injustice comic series written by Tom Taylor, and we see Aquaman just unleash the ultimate pain. He's not having an easy go at this time. He's unleashing armies on coastal cities. He's trying to show Superman that he has the power as well, and that he's not going to allow Atlantis to be taken over. So Superman is like, okay, you think you're the tough dude? No problem. Let me step in. Superman sees this as a threat, and even Batman's like, great, this is exactly what I thought was gonna happen between these two. So Superman doesn't just fly in, fight Aquaman one-on-one, and then settle their differences with this whole ordeal. No, instead Arthur gets the help of Wonder Woman and Green Lantern, and they literally move Atlantis. They move Atlantis like it's new furniture.
Pivot! Pivot!
They move it to the Sahara Desert, the place with the least amount of water possible. Not cool, guys, not cool.
At number 2, I'm putting the Injustice League from the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us. Most of us already know how this story goes, but in case you don't, this is one of the cooler and more well-written storylines about an evil alternate version of the Justice League. In most cases on this list, these evil groups are created by an alternate reality, which is always fun but pretty simple to come up with. But this storyline shows a radicalized Superman leading the Justice League to the dark side. And like I said, this isn't because he's an evil version of Superman or one that's possessed by some evil force. He's genuinely turned to evil after the Joker tricks him into killing Lois Lane. So to combat this new unexpected evil force, Batman decides to bring in other members from the Justice League from another universe, and the result is some pretty great fighting gameplay. And right as the game was being released, a comic book series of the same name was also being released in tandem, serving as a prequel to the game, where you can derive general story points from the game itself. Most of the backstory I just explained actually comes from the comics. It's cool to see the video game and comic book worlds working in tandem, and they make a pretty cool new storyline that I figure has to be ranked pretty high on this list.
Number 1. The Crime Syndicate of America. The Crime Syndicate of America hails from the strength-obsessed Earth 3, and is a twisted, evil version of many characters who make up the main universe Justice League of America. Its members include Ultraman in place of Superman, Thomas Wayne Jr., aka Owlman, and Alfred Pennyworth as the Outsider, Superwoman, who was Lois Lane at one point and Donna Troy at another, the cowardly Harold Jordan and vengeful John Stewart, who were both Power Ring, which are evil Green Lanterns, at different times, John Allen and John Chambers separately also as Johnny Quick, Atomica, Sea King, Deathstorm, Grid, and John Johns. They come into contact with the main universe many times, and they almost always spell out bad news, as you'd expect from the antithesis to the Justice League of America.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Diana gets ahead of the game. One of the changes to reality that occurs during the Flashpoint event is when Wonder Woman and Aquaman get married. I mean, it's great. I mean, well, not really. I mean, weddings are fun, I guess. I don't know. I hear shout and then I black out. It's so weird how that works. So this is the reality now where Bruce Wayne was shot and not his parents. And if that wasn't wild enough, Superman is now in a government lab having a not so relaxing time. And then we see Diana being saved by a sea monster from Aquaman. How lovely. A nice thing. This is great. We have nice things in this list already. Lovely. Ah yes, classic Wonder Woman. Nice. Nothing like getting cheated on and then having your head cut off, adding injury to insult this time. And then she pops her crown off of her severed head and then places it nicely on her own head. A war of course follows between the Atlanteans and the Amazons, but it comes to a lovely conclusion when Wonder Woman stabs Aquaman in the back. And yes, I mean literally in a sense. And before we go on to number 9, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a like, that would be great. You're the best. Thank you so much for watching. Let's pop right back into number 9 right off the bat. Let's keep going. Number 9, hard feelings. This next one isn't exactly a bad deed, but it's too weird of a Justice League story to not include, so I'm gonna throw it in at number 9. One I'd rather not have in my brain all day, so let's just get it out of the way. So now we go to World's Finest Comics issue 289. So Batman and Superman decide to catch up on some bro time, you know, take a break from beating up bad guys, just have a heart-to-heart, see what's going on in here. Now this heart-to-heart is the start of a wild adventure. Now the issue is titled The Cruel Way of Dying, and the dialogue itself is really good stuff actually. It highlights the mental health struggles that superheroes go through, you know, not being able to save everybody. It's meaningful, it's powerful dialogue, but what takes this issue to new heights, well rather new lows, is when Superman and Batman are interrupted by a meteorite crashing, and out of the meteorite emerges the crew. Now the crew, not what you imagine in your head off the bat. I can tell you that because the crew, they're a bunch of space worms, and they're attracted to sadness. That's how they found the two, because they were talking about super sad stuff, and they're like, yes, sad, this way, let's go, let's head it. Their super depression was literally glowing, so these aliens need emotion in order to pass away. See what happens when you try and feel nice things, Justice League? Way to go, now we're all crying. I'm definitely crying. They're dead. Space worms are coming for me because I'm crying now. What a vicious circle. Number 8, Lockdown, Beatdown. Kingdom Come is a 4-issue miniseries that comes from Mark Waid and Alex Ross. It's an Elseworlds imprint. Now, in this alternate reality, 20 years into the future, our heroes have gotten a little older, so they settled into the retirement life. Now, these new anti-heroes stepped up, and new vigilantes, of course, soon followed. Some of them were children of the previous superheroes, so it goes kind of deep. See, Parasite breaks open a hero named Captain Atom, and you already know by his name how that's gonna turn out if something like that were to explode. Boom! There goes Kansas, gone. No, literally, Kansas was gone. It was now just this wasteland. So this is when the Justice League comes in to save the day, or I guess turn the wasteland into a super prison too. That as well. So when you throw supervillains and superheroes into this alien tech super prison, there's gonna be a few fistfights, that's for sure.
Number 7, Lex Luthor. Many people see Lex Luthor as simply Superman's nemesis, but the truth is, his genius and ambition has also driven him to take on the whole League before as well. In fact, Lex has even been driven to make his own team to rival the League from time to time, being sometimes known as the leader of the Legion of Doom, depending on which continuity and which roster we're talking about, though it should be noted he was the leader of the original incarnation of that team that first appeared in the 70s animated series Super Friends. And even beyond that, Lex was also famous for targeting the Justice League with his Injustice Gang of the World in the 90s comics, which was actually brought together by Lex for the sole purpose of destroying the whole Justice League. So yeah, definitely makes you a Justice League villain if you're out to destroy them.
Number 6, Batman ignores Blue Beetle. So back in Countdown to Infinite Crisis, Blue Beetle had actually approached his super friends and teammates after he had discovered something called the OMAC Project. So he brought it to Batman's attention, but Bruce just doesn't really give a damn at this point. He brushes him off almost immediately. Well, the OMAC Project of course turned out to be something, and when Blue Beetle discovered it, he's all by himself and he doesn't live to tell the tale. If only Batman just took him seriously in this moment, things would have turned out a lot less ugly for him. I mean, I know Batman created this thing in the first place, so it's kind of fair that he didn't listen to him, but like before Infinite Crisis, the OMACs killed a lot of people. Shouldn't have just given him like 2 minutes to maybe explain. And the fact that Batman didn't just listen to his team member, especially when he already knew something was kind of going on, sounds like it's all on you, Batman. I don't want to be the guy to say it, but I was just the guy to say it.
Halfway through into number 5, Wonder Woman destroying the Justice League. When it comes to power and skill levels, Wonder Woman is arguably one of the strongest members of the Justice League. Characters like Superman and Martian Manhunter may have incredible power as aliens, and Superman, especially, may well just be the most powerful hero of all, but Wonder Woman is also basically a deity, at least being a god adjacent, because, you know, she's an Amazon. She's one of DC's most powerful heroes, if not their most powerful hero, especially if Kryptonite's around, and she has to keep her abilities and powers in check, much like how Spider-Man always has to pull his punches so he doesn't kill someone. However, in a one-shot called JLA: A League of One, written by Christopher Moeller, Wonder Woman realizes that the Justice League are just holding her back. She realizes that the entire league will be destroyed if she doesn't stop them herself, so she takes on each member of the Justice League and takes them down on her own so that she can act individually, kinda like a mini version of Marvel's Civil War, but on a much smaller and less daunting scale. Though understandable, this is still an initial betrayal and a major hurt. Luckily for Wonder Woman, her team does forgive her, because, you know, she didn't actually kill them. Maybe she was just having a midlife crisis, we don't know.
Number 4, get a room. Look guys, superheroes have emotions just like us, okay? They meet other superheroes and they take down bad guys together. They hook up in the sky in the owl ship above the rest of the world. They're just like us, okay? Sometimes key intimate moments are hard to conceal when you have the powers of a god, right? Specifically Wonder Woman and Superman. So after the triumph that is The Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller decided to dive into an intimate moment with those two. So Wonder Woman and Superman embrace in each other, but where does this happen? In a fancy hotel? Fortress of Solitude? No and no. They get it on up there in the sky, of course, where everyone can see and hear. So they're superheroes, so this caused massive tidal waves. Volcanoes are blasting off, people are even evacuating islands. Like, this is a bad day. I mean, bad day for everybody but Superman and Wonder Woman. They look like they had a great time.
Number 3, the Joker League. In Emperor Joker #1 of October 2000, the Joker has gained 99.99% of the reality warping powers of the 5th dimensional being, Mr. Mxyzptlk, and he used them to completely warp the world into an insane offshoot of our real world. In this Joker world, he has put together an evil, insane version of the Justice League called the Joker League of Anarchy. The team members include some characters we've seen before, such as Bizarro #1, Enigma, who's the Riddler, Gravedigger Lad, who is actually Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy. He has also created completely new characters that are wholly original to this story: Ignition, Bounty, Schism, and Scorched. He even has Lex Luthor as a jester. They are basically just the henchmen of this already pretty much all-powerful version of the Joker. Just another way of keeping him entertained, it seems.
Number 2. Superman outs Batman. So in the climax of Batman vs Superman, we see Bruce Wayne straight up try and take out the Man of Steel. It's intense, and it ends with Superman not surviving in a way, but until he comes back in the Justice League movie. Spoilers. So if you're feeling a little upset about that, this next one should turn the tables in your mind. Superman once outed Batman, and he did it in a pretty hilarious way. Through social media, of course. Did he make a TikTok? No. Was it through Ask FM? No and no. It was in the pages of Injustice Gods Among Us issue 10. I mentioned this comic earlier because it has our super friends going against each other, but Superman takes it up to the next level when he posts Batman's true identity online. His tweet was quite simple and to the point. Batman is Bruce Wayne. 1.5 million retweets. Not too shabby at all. Batman's trending on Twitter in real life almost like once a week, so I'm just waiting for the day when I look and I'm like, yes, Batman is real. And he's Paul Giamatti. Get out of here. I knew it. Number 1. Justice Lords. The DCAU introduced us to the Justice Lords back in November 2003 in an episode titled A Better World. Was it a better world? No, definitely not. They were a multiversal counterpart of the Justice League. This is an alternate universe now, one where Lex Luthor is the current president of the United States. The Justice Lords were assembled to protect humanity from itself, which just sounds like bad news. That sounds like a bad story in the making. So yeah, they were robot replicas of Superman, and the inmates of Arkham Asylum were brainwashed and lobotomized. Just not an ideal world at all, definitely not a better one. And then when the Justice Lords of this universe found out they weren't alone, they tried to bring their ways of heroics over to our world. But our good Justice League took them down with the help of our Lex Luthor, who used a power disruptor to neutralize their super abilities. So it's like good Lex, bad Lex, good team, bad team. Mind explosion. The idea of a rogue team member is terrifying, but a rogue team? Oh, what a nightmare. How do you stop them?
Number 10. Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate are the alternate Justice League of Earth 3. The main difference between them and the main continuity team though is that they are evil counterparts to the world's mightiest heroes. Instead of protecting the people of their Earth, they use their power to intimidate and control them instead. Not so good. The Crime Syndicate are pretty fearsome when it comes to their individual power sets and abilities, rivaling the League's members themselves. But the team's weakness lies in their lack of teamwork, and often in their inflated egos. And friends, before we move on to the next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, if you love my black trench coat, be sure to let us know by clicking that subscribe and hitting that like button. Number 9. Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul if you prefer. Ra's al Ghul is traditionally thought of as a Batman villain exclusively, but he's also threatened the whole world before. And he's also threatened the whole Justice League, managing to quickly get rid of all of them using Batman's own intel, which Ra's stole. Ra's al Ghul becomes a JLA villain in the story JLA Tower of Babel. Here he uses one of Batman's strengths against him, and in so doing manages to defeat almost the entire League, except for Batman, who manages to figure out what's happening and in the end eventually put a stop to it before Ra's is able to fully execute his plan. The really crazy thing is, while Ra's did hope to defeat the League, he really just wanted them out of the way so that they wouldn't stop him. So killing the League wouldn't have even been his main focus here. But imagine if it had been his main focus. The other interesting element in Tower of Babel is it also kind of implies that while being team leader, Batman is also kind of a villain to the team. And even if Raz's plan ends up being stopped and the League recovers from the temporary defeat, Ra's at the very least did manage to destabilize the team by turning them against their own leader, Batman, who is forced to leave the team as a result of the fallout. So in a way, he kind of won that. Number 8. The Flash. Although it feels weird to include Wally West's Flash on this list, sorry Wally, he was for a short time a Justice League villain, or at least an antagonist, and without meaning to be, kind of an effective one too, although at the same time also being a victim himself here. This all went down in Heroes in Crisis, where Wally's own burden of knowledge of the previous continuity caused him to uncover records of trauma suffered by his fellow colleagues. Overwhelmed by emotion, Wally loses control of his powers, killing some who came to the Hero Therapy Center known as Sanctuary for counseling and treatment. Although like I said, he didn't really mean to. And later he was like, I gotta make this right. And he did make it right, so he's good. It's good now.
Number 7. Tower of Babel. JLA Tower of Babel is a Justice League storyline, and one of the best storylines in my humble opinion. Written by Mark Waid and illustrations by Howard Porter, Batman is the greatest detective alive. Odds are, if you're ever in a room with Batman, he's already thought out your every move and he's planned his accordingly. He's always 2 steps ahead. That's what makes him the best. He also just happens to be the sole reason that everything goes in this storyline. He doesn't mean to, but it happens. So Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins launched this huge simultaneous attack on every member of the Justice League of America. Now the attacks are so specific, they're aware of the weakness of each League member. Now Batman was once worried that one or all of them could go rogue at any point, so he had contingency plans in order to take them out if that day ever came. So Talia al Ghul broke into the Batcave and stole those files. So if you want to take down some bad guys, here's exactly how to do it. Thanks, Batman. The best files ever. Now we have all the deepest, darkest secrets. Cool. So Plastic Man gets frozen and then shattered. A specifically designed Vibra bullet hits the Flash in the neck and causes him to have seizures at light speed, which sounds like an absolute nightmare. And Superman gets exposed to red kryptonite, and sadly, many more get hit too.
Number 6. Batman Who Laughs. I think after the events of Dark Knight's death metal, we have to acknowledge the Darkest Knight, right? Hailing from the dark multiverse reality of Earth -22, the Batman Who Laughs was originally Bruce Wayne and operated as Batman before he became corrupted by the Joker. He would turn into a villainous combination of these two characters and become known as the Batman Who Laughs, an alternate version of Batman. While he would go on to rival other villains who are beyond even a multiversal level threat to our heroes, Batman Who Laughs, at his base level, without absorbing a bunch of other people's powers, is kinda actually just a guy. Although a really smart and diabolical evil genius sort of guy, and maybe a guy who, you know, had his physiology slightly altered by Joker venom. But anyways, truly it's his brilliant mind and his determination that makes him so deadly.
Number 5. Injustice League. Okay, so we have the Crime Syndicate of America, but there was also a team of villains put together to fight that team of villains. So, sort of technically making these villains heroes, but also not really because they're still villains. Right? The important information here is that the Injustice League, at least the one I'm referring to, was formed to combat the Crime Syndicate of America from Earth 3. The team's villainous members included Bizarro, Black Manta, Black Adam, Catwoman, Deathstroke, Sinestro or Parallax, Captain Cold, and they were formed and led by Lex Luthor. The team first appeared in Forever Evil number 3 in January of 2014 when the Crime Syndicate of America invaded the Prime Earth universe and tried, and very nearly did, take over the world.
Number 4. Pariah. The crazy thing is Pariah originally was just a scientist who wanted to help save the multiverse, or at least warn people about its destruction, but in so doing he kind of became driven mad by its inevitable end. Pariah is the one behind the death of the Justice League in the Death of the Justice League story arc, which happened recently, which builds up to the Dark Crisis event. He succeeded where many have failed as major Justice League antagonists. He actually managed to, you know, kill the Justice League. Perhaps this was possible for Pariah because his motivation to do so was so strong. He wasn't actually killing them out of hatred or because he felt, you know, they were in his way or they had like done him wrong, but because he felt their very existence basically threatened the existence of the multiverse. Seeing another major crisis coming that was in essence triggered by the consolidation of all continuities and universes at the end of Dark Knight's death metal, Pariah felt the only chance he'd have at stopping it would be to basically eliminate the heroes of the day, thereby stopping the progression of the coming crisis. To him it made sense. I don't know if it makes sense to you. I don't know if it makes sense to me, but to him it made sense.
Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Injustice. I think the whole Injustice Earth is enough of a sin to earn a spot on this list. Just the entirety of the Injustice world is truly an injustice. In a parallel universe, the Joker tricks Superman into killing his pregnant wife Lois Lane and detonating a nuclear weapon that destroys Metropolis, killing millions of people. Mad with grief and rage, and because, you know, Lois Lane died in this universe, Superman goes dark and murders the Joker, quickly losing his moral compass. 5 years after this moment, Superman has formed the One Earth regime to enforce global peace through fear, and rules the Earth as a ruthless dictator with an iron fist. Or I guess a steel fist. Get it? Because he's the Man of Steel. Anyway, alongside many other heroes and villains, he recruited or forced into joining him and killing any who oppose him. Batman ends up establishing the insurgency, which is actually supposed to oppose Superman's regime, and then that's why he exposes his identity. But then the ensuing war between the factions just leaves the Justice League disbanded. But either way, this is probably one of the darkest timelines.
Number 2. Anti-Monitor. Speaking of beings who have the ability to destroy entire worlds, Anti-Monitor one-ups this by possessing the ability to destroy entire universes. He is the villain we know from the famous Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event. This event completely changed the history of the DC universe, after the Anti-Monitor attacked and successfully destroyed many worlds, causing the continuity to in essence be reset and reorganized as a result of the fight against him. Also, I feel like you know you're a powerful villain if you can like change up like the whole world like that. That's pretty crazy. Number 1. Perpetua. Perpetua is actually probably one of the most powerful villains that the Justice League has ever come up against to date, and probably one of the most powerful villains just ever. Period. End of statement. She is the mother of the Anti-Monitor, Monitor or Over-Monitor, and the World Forger. Perpetua is actually believed to be one of the most fearsome beings in all of the Omniverse. Never mind the universe or even the multiverse, the Omniverse. The Omniverse holds within it all the known multiverses in existence for those that believe in that. That being the multiverses that are not just DC, but like DC, Marvel, like any multiverse you can imagine that exists, including our own. Which means, yeah, Perpetua is basically on a whole other level. While she was defeated in Dark Knight's death metal, Perpetua is still seen as being a foe possessing nigh omnipotence, with her even being implied as the creator of the universe, having likely been the hand of creation involved in sparking the Big Bang. She was tricked by the Batman Who Laughs and manipulated by him into giving up kinda like all of her crisis energy power, thereby in the end being defeated, but still, at base levels, she would be considered one of the most powerful beings in the known Omniverse. Even though now, you know, she got put in the Source Wall and it got destroyed, but still, I still think we need to tip our hats. Sure, she'll be back at some point.